Hi, I'm Kimberly George with Sedgwick. Today is one of my favorite days of the year. It's an opportunity to interview injured workers. Work Comp Central has had Comp Laude awards for a number of years, and one of the unique aspects is to give grace and time on stage to our injured workers. We're often a system that designs around regulation or our claims processes, but the voice of the injured worker matters more than ever. We're in an on-demand environment. We have complex medical care. We have sophisticated patients. And today, you get to see what good looks like. These injured workers have an amazing story to tell. They're resilient and they're transparent. They'll share with you how they were injured, their recovery, and where they're at today. So let's get started. Billy, will you introduce yourself?
Yes, my name is Billy Parker. I'm a bilateral amputee and have been since 2007.
Wonderful. Thanks, Billy. Kate and Tess?
Hi, I'm Tess. What do I say?
You tell them your first injury.
Oh, my first injury was July 2009 when I was struck by lightning. And that's
Great. And Kate?
Kate.
Yeah, Kate's mother. You know, it's wonderful to have a family member on stage today because many times there is a family supporting the injured worker. There's not only the workers' compensation claim system to help patients get through their journey, and Kate will share some of her story along with Tess today. Dana?
Hi, I'm Dana Moore. I have a spinal cord injury that occurred in November 2013.
Great. And let's stick with you, Dana. Tell us a little bit about how your injury occurred.
I was water well drilling in San Diego, where I currently live. A 400-pound pipe fell on me while I was loading it from a horizontal platform to a vertical, and something malfunctioned with the hydraulic system, causing the pipe to fall on my head, which caused the flexion in my back, fracturing my thoracic 6 and 7.
Okay. And Billy?
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about your injury.
Oh, yes. My injury was January 27th, 2007, and around 8:17 in the morning. I was a welder fabricator for a little over 21 years, and one morning I didn't use lockout tag out, and I tried to clean the machine out while it was still running, and I ended up getting caught in it. It was a big shredder, big drywall shredder, and that's pretty much the same day I got my residuals, as you see on the shirt. So,
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. You know, when injuries happen, it's obviously such a catastrophic event that our patients, our injured workers here aren't sure, you know, what's next. And that's part of the conversation today, is to learn about their injury, then their medical treatment, and certainly the journey of recovery. And let's go to Kate and Tess next. How did the injury occur?
well, I'm an archaeologist, and I was on the first day of a new job, and lightning struck me.
Wow, lightning.
Wow.
Lightning.
Came out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere.
Was it blue skies, or was it a difficult day with the weather?
It was the sky.
There was a storm coming in the west, but it was very far away. The protocol is thunder. They start, packing up, but there wasn't any. The lightning struck her on the right side of her head and went through, came out her right ankle, and it destroyed her cerebellum.
Okay, well, we'll learn more about her treatment. Very interesting, Tess. I was a trauma nurse, but that's an injury we didn't see very often in the hospital, was an electrocution like yours. Wow. Dana, let's hear about your initial treatment. The pipe fell on you, and tell us a little bit about your initial treatment, if you don't mind, and some of your recovery.
So the pipe fell on me, and I wasn't knocked unconscious. I was out for maybe a second, and I came to. I was 1 second. I was standing there, come to, and I'm holding myself up between the two trucks. And I realized I tried moving my legs because my knee was bent. My leg was underneath me, and I couldn't move it. And so I was working with my cousin actually, so I called him over, and I was like, "You need to call 911, turn everything off. I can't move my legs." And so once paramedics got there, they took me to Sharp Hospital in San Diego, where I was initially diagnosed with a spinal cord injury. And so that was stabilized, had surgery, and then I was inpatient from there until I could check all the boxes to get discharged.
Yeah. So when you were first injured, you went straight to Sharp.
Yep.
And then did you have another facility, or were you able to stay at Sharp for your care?
I was at injury to discharge was 1 month, and I was at Sharp for the entirety.
Yeah, and for those in the audience, 1 month with a spinal cord injury is pretty amazing. And so when we talk about what good looks like, part of that, and you'll hear stories today from our panelists, is the medical care they receive. But don't discount these patients. They are not only resilient, but they are determined to get better. And I say that because, Dana, having been a neurotrauma nurse and worked so many years in the spinal cord injury area, a month is pretty fast. Did you feel like it was really long, or were you ready to get on out?
I was ready to get out as soon as possible. I was injured on November 21st, so I really didn't want to I spent Thanksgiving in the hospital and did not want to spend Christmas in the hospital. So that was a big goal for me, was to get out before Christmas.
And how old were you when your accident happened?
Ooh, 23?
23.
Or 23 or 24.
Okay. Pretty young and energetic.
Oh,
Well, that's great. We'll hear more about your story here in a little bit. Billy, why don't you share with us some of your medical treatment?
Yeah, so I think I made a mistake. I think I said my incident was January 27th. It was January 23rd, 2007. I remember when I guess my medical treatment, you could say, started the day of the incident. When I pulled out of the machine, I had to actually get myself out of the machine. And when I did, a couple co-workers were able to lay me down on the floor and step on my residual limbs to slow that blood down enough. Of course, the EMTs came, and I went to University of Hospital, University of U of L University here in Louisville, Kentucky, and I was there for 19 days. I went through 2 surgeries and a little bit of a skin graft off my thigh to cover up my right arm. The first surgery was 8 hours, believe it or not. They were able to close my left arm up. The first surgery. It took another surgery, couple surgeries to get close my right arm up a few days later. I was there for 19 days. I went from the university straight to Fraser Rehab, and I was there for 21 days. And just wanted to get out of there. They were working me out pretty hard in there, and I just wanted to get out of there. And I tell you, it was kind of crazy letting everybody do everything for you. I really had no choice. Everybody had to do everything for me, so I was ready to get out of there. 21 days. So yeah.
And Billy, a lot of times in workers' compensation, I know our nurses and our claims adjusters are trying to help the amputee patients with phantom pain. How has your pain been, or was it then?
Yeah, I have phantom pain all the time, and I have from the beginning. I probably always will have, and sometimes it's pretty bad. I don't like to take pills, and so I don't. I think in the beginning they when I got out of the hospital, they put me on Lyrica, I believe it was, for phantom pain. A lot of people use that, and but I pretty much did it for about a month, and I got rid of them, and I haven't been on anything since. And when I get that phantom pain, it's usually late at night or something like that when I'm more relaxed and everything. And I just kind of I kind of put it in the back of my mind and kind of forget about it, even though it's still there. So I think I've kind of gotten used to it, I guess you could say.
For those of you that know me, I tend to move very fast and from one thing to the next. And I've told Billy, I think he might be the most patient person I've ever met. I didn't get that gene, but I'm envious of him. And we'll learn a little bit more about that as he shares some of the information on his prosthetics here in a bit. So Kate and Tess, I want to learn more about Tess's treatment. I think your story around the medical treatment you received and Tess, what an amazing journey you had with your medical treatment. And I really want you to share some of that with our audience.
Well, Tess doesn't have any memory of probably the first 6 months. So I can speak to her having 35 minutes of CPR in the field and being life flighted to the University of New Mexico Medical Center. She was in the ICU for a month. And she was on a ventilator and a feeding tube and a chest tube, and just, she was in the burn unit because she had some burns from the lightning, and had what is called a waking coma. And then she was moved to Denver, from Albuquerque to Denver, to a hospital to get her off the ventilator. And then she was at Craig Hospital for 6 months, which is a brain injury spinal cord hospital. And it was just amazing. She couldn't speak, move. She really kind of had to start to learn how to breathe again. Mm-hmm. But she was there for 6 months, and then she went to QLI, which is a residential rehabilitation in Omaha, Nebraska. And she was there for a year and a half. So I'm amazed you guys were in and out of hospitals so fast, because Tess was, she continued to improve. And, she's a testament to, if you really get all the care you need, you can accomplish an amazing amount of things. But it took a long time.
And Kate, will you help the audience understand how you came about finding Craig, and then maybe just a little bit about the story with the insurance company while you were at Craig? I think that's really meaningful to our audience. And what I want our audience to think about is, when you hear this story, is who is the patient advocate? Who is helping the patients get to the right medical care so that they can have the best outcome possible? Kate, go ahead and tell us Tess's story.
Well,
and your story.
Ironically, Tess's father is a neuropsychologist, and he was director of brain injury services at a local hospital in Kansas City. And so, but he was retired by the time Tess's injury happened. And he knew what she needed. And it's like learning a new language when they are telling you what's wrong and what needs to be done. And so really her father was the advocate for what kind of actual care she needed. And he knew professionally about Craig and said right away, she needs to go to Craig Hospital. The workman's comp people we were working with were out of Albuquerque, and we were there with them. And they said, yeah, whatever you need. So when we got to Craig, we were there for a little while, and our adjuster, our claims people, and I want to give a shout out to Michael Hamsing, who was our claims guy, and Cecil Rudd, who was over the whole shebang. And they traveled up to Craig, and we were afraid they were coming to sit us down and tell us, she's been in the hospital now for 4 months, and this is it. And they came to just tell us whatever we need, they're going to provide it. And they wanted to see Tess and put a face with her and her family. It was just the greatest relief ever to have them come and tell us that.
Yeah, I think that so many times in the claims world, we have the best of intentions, but our communication may not be clear. We may not have the trust of the family and the confidence in the family. And really amazing to the insurer that they brought the claims adjuster and then chief claims, the head of all claims, up to meet the family, to reassure them that they were there not just to pay the bills, but to make sure Tess had the best recovery possible. And I have to say that it gave me goosebumps when I heard this. It's very touching that the family had the support, and Tess, that you had the support so that you could have the amazing medical care that you had. And we'll spend a little bit more time talking about that. There's more to the story, and certainly of the transition to rehab and the amazing recovery that Tess had at QLI. But Dana, let's shift over to you. Tell us who your advocates were and how you were able to work with the insurance company or get the medical care you needed. I know it's a different story than Tess, and that's part of workers' comp. Every claim has its own journey. So who was there supporting you along the way?
My now wife, then girlfriend, was there with me every day in the hospital. She slept there every single night. And my whole family pretty much lives in San Diego, so I had a very good support system already in place. I worked with my nurse case manager from Paradigm, and she got me everything I needed. She was actually pushing more on me than I needed care-wise, and just laid out every option possible for me to make the most educated decision possible for my own recovery.
And Dana, being young, we find that young patients in general want less time in a medical system than out typically. And you strike me as one that wanted to get out quickly. But what did you do to be able to be so independent? You're completely independent in your care today. You're independent in your house and your job. So tell us a little bit about once you left the hospital after that month, what did your care look like?
Once I left, I was scheduled for outpatient at Sharp, but since I was still in my back brace for 3 more months, I was pretty limited as what I could do. So I started going to VIP Neurorehabilitation Center in San Diego, where they have like a Locomat, a Geiger, and you can work with a physical therapist. So I started going there in the interim because I couldn't do anything at Sharp since I already checked all the boxes. So I started going there in January, and I still go there to this day, not as often as I'd like, but so I was going there 5 days a week, at least an hour a day, just trying to do something and see what could happen. And work comp didn't put up a fight at all and supported me throughout the entire process. And yes, as a young person, I did want to be out of the medical system as soon as possible.
Yeah, but the good news is you followed through with your therapy and what you learned so that you could be strong and healthy. So that's good. You didn't skirt the work. You just didn't want to be in a facility to make it happen.
Exactly. And nothing wrong. I love hard work more than the next person, but not when it's in a hospital.
Yeah. And Billy, you have you're such an inspiration. Tell us a bit about learning in the beginning about your prosthetics, and then sort of how those prosthetics have evolved. You're an inspiration to amputees and non-amputees, myself included, and I think that your story is really interesting.
Oh, thanks. So you want to know about my prosthetics? I have in the prosthetic world, I guess you can say, you have body powered, you have passive, and you have electric. And I have a hybrid set of arms, which is pretty cool, which is body powered and electric together. The elbows, just shrugging my shoulders, I can move the forearm up and down. I don't know if you can see that, but just shrugging my shoulders moves it up and down. And that works with the left and the right. And then I got a little bump switch. I'll hit it with my chin every now and again. And what that does, that locks that elbow. It keeps that forearm from moving, so it locks it in place. And I can lock it in like I does in different places, so it works out pretty good. I can use it pretty much wherever I want it, over my head, wherever I need it. So it locks it pretty good, pretty awesome. And then the rest of the electric comes in when I slide into these things, and when I have to slide into them, as you can see, I'll do this for you a little bit. Got my residual out. Got my residual out, and I can just slide into them in the morning. But what happens is there's sensors. There's some sensors inside these sockets that land on my bicep muscle and my tricep muscle. And I can slowly flex my tricep with my right arm. I'm going to do it with my right arm. Give me just a second. Here we go. Sometimes I get a little interference. Let me do it with my left. I'm going to do it with my left, but I'm going to slowly flex my tricep and I can open it. You can see it open there.
Yeah.
Then I can slowly flex my tricep just a little harder, and I can spin it one way. And then the bicep will close it. Just flexing my bicep is all I'm doing. And then flex that bicep a little harder, I can spin it the other way. So all it is just muscle movement. There's these sensors in here reading that electric signal from my muscles, and it's sending that signal to a computer, and it's making these things work out pretty good, you know. So I've had this same hybrid setup for ever since my amputation, for almost 14 years. It'll be 14 years in January. So, but that's pretty much how they work. And you know, I can pretty much do just about anything I want with these things.
Wow.
And that pretty much stemmed from I just wanted. When I was in rehab, I was at Fraser Rehab. I got my one arm. I had this one. I still had a lot of stitches in my right arm, but my left arm was ready to receive a prosthetic, and they came in and they cashed me and brought a prosthetic in. So I had one left prosthetic arm when I was in rehab. For the first week, no, I didn't have anything, but after the first week, I had one prosthetic arm and practiced with it. And I remember they didn't know how to teach me to use that arm. You know, a lot of the PTs and OTs, they didn't know what to do to teach me. We tried to look for videos and things like that. And I think we found one video, it was a very old video of a quad amputee doing things in the shower that kind of helped out a little bit, you know. And so it was just having that one arm, you know, like I was 39 years old when I lost my arms. Okay. So I was young, fairly young, I guess you can say. And, you know, being in there, I was wanting to get out of there just as quick as possible too. And knowing that they couldn't really show me anything to do with my arms, you know, I knew that I had to get out of there and live life, you know, just learn how to do these things. And they wanted me to crack an egg in a bowl. And I talked them into it. I said, you know, I can do all this working out that we're doing in here. I can do it at home. You know, I don't have to worry about traveling, trying to get in or everything. And they wanted me to pick up an egg and crack it in a bowl and without a shell in it, you know, with that one left arm. And 2 days later, I picked up an egg and I cracked it and put it in a bowl. Didn't have no shell in it. A few days later, I was home. You know, I was ready to get home. And I only had that one left prosthetic arm, but I was bound and determined to make it work. I remember in the beginning, you know, when I got out, I had a little bit of outpatient. And that was just pretty much going and working out. They still didn't know what to do with my arm. They would have me take my arm off, my prosthetic arm off, to work out, to do certain things, you know. And so that didn't last very long. The outpatient part didn't. I was like, man, I can do all this at home. You know what I mean? And because we wasn't really working with my arms at all. And so that's what I did. I went home and just started doing things. They actually sent there was a gentleman that came to my house for about the first 2 weeks of me being home. And, you know, when I left Fraser Rehab, the only thing I could do with that prosthetic arm was pull up a pair of socks. I could put some shoes on that were already tied, and I could pull up some basketball shorts, you know, and a shirt. That's about all I could do. You know, I still couldn't cook and do a lot of things, go to the restroom on my own or anything. So they sent a gentleman and brushed my teeth. I couldn't do any of that. And they sent the gentleman in for about 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, I was like, you know, I could either sit here and have this guy come in every day for the rest of my life and brush my teeth for me, or I can try to do it my darn self. You know what I mean? And that's what I did. I called, I think it was Home Instead. I called him up and said, I think I can do all this on my own. And if I can, I'll give you a call back. But I'm pretty sure I can do it on my own. And so he didn't have to come back anymore. They were kind of surprised, but that's what I did. I just hunkered down, and I knew I had a couple different choices. I can either just give up and lay there and just let life go on and pass me by, or I can go out there and live life and make it what it's supposed to be. So that's what I chose to do.
Yeah, that's what good looks like.
Yeah.
That's what good looks like. We're going to talk a little bit more about your prosthetics, maybe even show them, or you can talk to them here in a bit, Billy, after I talk with some of our other panelists about your prosthetics. So Kate and Tess, let's talk about QLI, because many of us are very familiar with Craig and Sharp as where Dana was for that immediate post care. And you can touch on that care if you want, but I'm interested in the audience understanding why after Craig we needed to have more medical treatment for Tess, and what the goals were once she was able to transition to Nebraska.
Do you remember going to Nebraska? Tess was in a wheelchair. She could not speak, but she had to relearn everything motor, and speech is one of the most intricate motor controls there are. So really, she couldn't do anything when she got to QLI. They have a team there of all your therapists, the typical physical therapy, occupational, etc., speech, but they also try to get to know the person and what they get excited about and work those sorts of things into your treatment, right? Mm-hmm. And so one of the first things that we told them was that Tess was crazy about tacos. That was her favorite. And she couldn't speak, but she could spell on a piece of paper that just had the alphabet. And so if somebody asked her a question, she could spell. And so they found out she liked tacos. And as soon as she was able to feed herself better, they took her out for Tess's Taco Tuesday. And it was on for over a year. And it got so popular that so many people wanted to do it that they had to have two different teams. Like these 6 people are on this Tuesday night and these 6 people are on the other Tuesday night. And one thing that Tess never lost was her sense of humor. So that was great. Everybody just, I don't know, fell in love with her, but she also worked really hard and was trying her best. She had a computer that Workman's Comp bought for her before we left Craig, that they pre-programmed so somebody came in and said, Tess, how are you today? And she could push a button that said, I'm fine, thank you. Oh. And she told him that she didn't want to say that because she wasn't fine. So she had them program it, to say, oh, I'm okay, or whatever she wanted. And it was a very expensive item. And when she went to QLI, there was a young woman in the house where she lived who used one that was there at QLI. Her insurance had stopped and she was having to go home. And she was in a wheelchair, and that was her only way of communication. And but they, her family couldn't afford one, and the insurance had ended. So I told Tess, I said, kid, you got to start talking, because when she leaves in May, we need to give her your Dynavox. And I swear it was like 2 days later, she said her first word. Oh. And she was trying so hard so that she could give that Dynavox to her friend when she left. And then before Tess was done at QLI, everything was being done on iPads. But
Wow.
when she first got there, the iPad technology wasn't there, but it was by the time she left. So she goes nowhere without her iPad.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And I know that you mentioned that she was in a wheelchair initially. Was she able, Tess, were you able to learn to walk then at QLI? And what types of treatment did you have so that you could be strong enough to walk again?
I was able to walk, but let's see, it took a long time,
Yeah.
and then I started using a walker, and then a three-wheels walker.
So she still uses a walker.
A walker, okay.
But they at Craig and at QLI, the physical therapy was, very instrumental in using all kinds of different equipment to help her with strength and balance. But she was in the wheelchair really for almost 2 years. And then we said, she's got to have a walker so she can be independent. And so as independent as she could be.
Yeah, yeah. Without QLI, she learned to, advance to be able to speak and walk with a walker. So there must have been physical therapy and speech therapy. And you mentioned living in a house. Were the patients like Tess, did they live in pods, or how was it a small facility? Tell us a little bit about what QLI was like.
QLI is the most wonderful place, isn't it? Really, it's the most wonderful place. And Tess was, 25 when she was there. And a lot of her team were also young women that she felt a kinship to. And so they, became friends, but the teams all worked together. So if Tess did something new in physical therapy, by the time she got to her next therapy, she'd walk in the room and they'd go, "Hey, we heard that you did," and it's so everybody communicated, and the teams were very close, and they were just constantly. My husband, when we were first there, he said, "I don't know, it's a little creepy. It's like Disney World. Everybody's way too happy." But they walked, it was like it's voted the best place to work in Omaha like every year.
Oh.
And then when she was back there 10 years later, her team was still there. They were running the place.
Wow.
They were running the place. They were all executives or, whatever. And so then she had two teams because her new team there was somebody looking over their shoulder saying, "Okay, now this is Tess. So you have to do this right."
Yeah.
A young man came up when Tess was back in 2019, and he said, "I'm a physical therapist and I've never met you, but I've trained on your injury for 5 years." And so they talk about her at the university and the physical therapy, the kids in physical therapy school and stuff. And they have videos and interviews with Tess about her amazing recovery.
Yeah, it's wonderful that others can learn from your hard work, Tess, and your recovery. It helps QLI. They do a lot of research and publication of their research. So kudos to you, because who knows how many people you're helping around the globe. And Dana, let's shift to you. I know that you transitioned out of the hospital quickly. You've shared that, and your VIP rehab, but you must have gone through a learning to be able to have self-care for at home, and did you have to have any home modifications? So what's some of the medical equipment that you needed when you came home or still need today? And then any modifications in your home if they were necessary?
I was pretty fortunate. I initially, well, when I got hurt, I was living with my girlfriend at her parents' house, and we were going to move out to an apartment. And so when I got hurt, her parents live in a 2-story house, and so we kind of had nowhere to go because my parents lived in Orange County in a 2-story house too. So I stayed at a hotel for 2 months, and then during that time, we were just looking for an apartment that was able to accommodate me, and thankfully we found one that I didn't need to modify anything. I just had a shower bench and like a bathroom chair, and that's about it that I needed for equipment for the home. I still have to use catheters today, and that's about it for medical devices or equipment in my house. Thankfully, that we bought, I didn't have to modify it all. I had to buy just one ramp to get in, one step in the garage, and that was it.
Yeah. And so do you have one wheelchair that is able to work for you, or do you have a couple of different kinds?
Just one.
Just one. And then a pad to sit on? Any
Like a
cushion,
cushion?
special cushion or anything
No.
in your chair?
Yeah, I mean, just a gel cushion.
A gel
I
cushion.
think. Yeah.
Yeah. See, these questions that you're answering, all of you, and Billy, we'll talk about your prosthetics next. A lot of times in the claims world, we expect there to be an end. You know, you think, oh, we'll go through this treatment and then a patient is done or they're finished. And with our catastrophic patients, you know, that care may go on the rest of their life. And sometimes that's with an ongoing claim, and sometimes a claim settles. When I think of Tess's care, you know, the benefit that our claims payers, our case managers should take away from this is that not all patients are the same. There are patients that can go to Craig and then they may be discharged to home. The multifunctional interdisciplinary team that QLI offered Tess helped her get to where she is today. And I think you'll be really surprised at the things Tess was able to do. We'll talk about those after Billy shares his insights. But it's important that our claims teams understand what a patient needs. Each patient's very different. The wheelchair, for instance, as Dana said, he's very functional. We have oftentimes, I know people in the audience are saying, well, my patient needs 2 chairs, or they're not as functional and able to do all the self-care Dana is. So just keep in mind, these are really great stories that help us learn, but we also need to keep in mind that one person's story, one patient's story, one claim is not the next. And so we need to treat each one on their own merits and make sure that each injured worker gets the best medical care possible and then has the opportunity to succeed once they're home. And I think, Billy, when we look at your prosthetics, I think it's pretty amazing. Most of us are in awe of what you're able to do, but you're a YouTube star when it comes to amputees. You train on safety. Tell us some of the great things you're able to do with your prosthetics, and then also just how you're able to share your knowledge with others.
Yeah, well, as I said earlier, I can pretty much do just about whatever I want with these prosthetics. And, you know, all that consisted of was me just hunkering down and just wanting to do it, you know, wanting to use these things and make them work for me. And, you know, there was frustration that came with it. And, you know, I'd get mad. There'd be sometimes I'd want to take these things off and just sling them through a wall or something sometimes, you know, in the beginning. But I didn't, you know, and I tell you what worked for me more than anything was that if I got frustrated, I would walk away from doing what I was doing because it was frustrating. And I would always come back to it. You know, it didn't matter if it was a few hours or a day or a week or a month. I would always come back to it because I was bound determined to do it. I just didn't want to have all that frustration built up. And, you know, I just didn't like feeling like that. So I would take breaks all the time, you know, and I was lucky. I was very fortunate enough to have, you know, I think they were called Total Medical Solutions in the beginning, and I think they're one call now. And I'm able to get pretty much whatever I need to live my life, and it's thanks to them, you know. And but I know I'm getting kind of off track a little bit. I tend to do
No,
that,
you're good.
you know.
You're good.
But yeah, and but I have 2 sets of prosthetics. I actually have 3. I have 2 sets of these. Then I have another set of body power, nothing but body power, no electric or anything. And I'm finding out that they kind of spoiled me in the beginning. They put me in these electrical things, and I can use the heck out of them. And when I go to put body powers on, everything works with your body. You know, your hooks open with your body. It's a whole lot harder. You know what I mean? So I'm actually now learning how to use body powered arms. You know, so it's pretty wild on that. I really don't have too much adaptive stuff, like with my arms. I just use these hooks, and I do have some hands. They're called an ILM hand, and they're in the shop right now. Both of them are getting worked on. I tend to break them all the time for some reason. They tell me that they haven't made them Billy P proof yet. So, you know. I guess
Yeah, Billy P, I just want to say, he power washed for 6 hours. He's an active man, and he's living in a new house, so the hands wore out.
Yeah.
He works harder.
Yeah. Just the vibration from the, I had my ILM hand on, just the vibration of holding that handle down for 5 or 6 hours, worked all the screws loose in the hand. And once I went to release the hand from the power wash, it just fell apart. It's crazy. But that's, you know, things happen. That kind of stuff happens. And the only thing I really had to do to modify my home or anything like that was I had to get a bidet. So I do use a bidet at home. But that's okay. I figured out how to do it the other way too without a bidet. I actually, you know, for 10 years, I lived in my own home by myself and just taught myself how to do everything, you know, and had my bidet and everything. And then I ended up meeting a lady named Kelly. She's my fiance now, and we ended up selling. She sold her house, I sold my house, and I was like, oh. And I never thought about it, but what am I going to do once I get out of there? Hold on just a second. Matt, no, quit. I got a dog here going crazy.
No problem.
All right, yeah, but where was I? I just lost myself.
You and Kelly sold your house.
Oh yeah. She sold her house, I sold my house, and we couldn't find a house before that happened, so we had to end up moving into an apartment. And it was scary because, you know, I was so comfortable being in my house and having it set up the way that I needed. I really didn't have nothing special. Just I went from door knobs to door handles, easier to open, as you can imagine, instead of trying to turn the knob with these things, and a bidet. That's pretty much all I had to do to my house, you know. So when I went to an apartment, I was like, well, I ain't got a bidet now. You know, what am I going to do? And I was just determined to figure it out, and that's what I did. I just figured out how to do it, you know. And and you know, my mom always said, growing up, where there's a will, there's a way. And I really found that out when I lost my arms, how true them words are, and still are to this day. I live by them words every day, man. Where there's a will, there's a way. And I'm just very grateful that I've always been a positive guy. You know what I mean? And I've also got so many positive people behind me backing me up. And that's, you know, that's power within itself. You know what I mean? And you know, I remember in the little bit in the beginning, I had a lot of questions. You know, being a new amputee, I'm like, oh my gosh. As far as I knew, I had never met an amputee and never even seen an amputee. And so I was like, what in the world do I do? I mean, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do this? I had so many questions. And I think mentally, it was bothering me a little bit in the beginning, you know, as you can imagine. But what took care of all that, which I think is a very important thing for me to say right now, is that I actually, somebody called me up and wanted me to talk. They had a gentleman come into my room when I was at Fraser Rehab, and he had lost both of his hands. in a farm accident in a hay baler. And I tell you what, even though I had all them questions and I was lost, I didn't know what I was going to do. I still had that positive attitude. I just didn't know what I was going to do. But he came in there, was there probably 20, 30 minutes, and just having a conversation with him, what that did was put that big hope right in front of my face. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, man, if this guy can do it, I can do it. You know what I mean? My arms, I think he just lost his hands. He still had his forearms. Mine's a little different. It's above the elbow. But you know what? I said, you know what? If he can do this kind of stuff, I can do this kind of stuff. And that's just mentally, I think in the beginning, that helped me out more than anything. That was probably the most, in my recovery, that was probably how can I want to say it where it makes sense. I wouldn't say the most help, but mentally that was, it was. Mentally, that was the best help that I could have had.
An inspiration.
It was an inspiration having, his name is Alan Hicks, great guy. He actually came in there and we still talk. I'm friends with him and he's just a great guy. And, it just helped me out so much, just being able to talk to somebody sort of in my same position that I was in, you know what I mean? I think that's really important. It's really important to open up and talk. So,
yeah, that's great. Thank you, Billy.
Okay.
And then we'll come back to you before we wrap.
Okay. I got a few things I'm going to show you.
Yeah, then you're going to show us next, okay?
Yeah.
Tess and Kate, why don't you share with us, once you left QLI, some of the things, Kate, that Tess was able to do that you were able to do that you really enjoyed after you were able to leave QLI?
What did you do?
First time,
Yeah, first time.
rock climb.
Yeah.
Wow, rock climbing.
You could ride a horse again.
Ride a horse.
And then when we moved back to Santa Fe, she was able to do the adaptive snowboarding.
Yes, adaptive snowboarding.
Actually, you did that before that because a friend she made at Craig Hospital had called and said, we're taking a group of patients up to do adaptive skiing. And you're in Colorado and we want you to come with us. So we brought Tess out so she could. And she said, I'm a snowboarder. So you have to adapt a snowboard for me.
That's good. That's good. Tess, your mom told me you were really active, loved to ride horses and snowboard and Knowles, outdoor with Knowles. I'm familiar with Knowles, so what an outdoors girl you like the outdoors.
Well, and she worked outdoors. So
yes.
it was that love of outdoors, but it was also she was young and very, very strong, which is why she's here.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Dana, tell us what's going on in your life today. You said your girlfriend, now wife, so you must have gotten married. What else has happened in your life?
Trying to keep up with my 2.5-year-old kid. My son Kai is a challenge every day since he's always trying to do something new. Just busy working and trying to find time to balance family and work.
Why don't you share with the audience what your first job was after you were finished with your care after your injury, and then what you do today?
After injury, I did not have a technical job until 2018, but my wife was working and I was just rehabbing. I was day trading on the side because someone at rehab told me he knew that I was into finance and he was into finance. He's like, here, check this out and like learn on your own. You can trade with fake money if you want and just to get your bearings underneath you, or go in with real money. So I started doing that. But then once my wife had her kid, I went back to work so she could stay home with him. and I got a job at ICW, which is an work comp insurance company, and I was in audit and compliance. So I got the other end of the spectrum is from working with work comp, working for work comp. So it was good to see both sides of the coin. And after that, I now work at a real estate investment company as an analyst.
That's great. That's really, really wonderful. And to think that you transitioned from working outdoors where a pipe fell on you to being in finance and an analyst role that you are in today. That's really amazing. Kudos to you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Billy, why don't you show us a few of your prosthetic the things you can do with the prosthetics, or a little bit about your YouTubes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I do. Like I said, I didn't really have nothing to go by when I lost my arm to show me how to use my prosthetics. So when I got to where I could use these things pretty good, I started making videos and putting them online. I got a Facebook page and a YouTube page, Billy P. Amputee. And what it does, I just put them on there maybe to help other amputees out, maybe push them along a little faster, give them some ideas how to do things. We're all different, so they may not do it exactly how I do it, but it may give them an idea or give them some kind of hope and some positivity. So that's what I do. I love doing the videos. I do it all the time, put them on there. I've got over 40 videos on there, I think, now. So that's pretty cool. Of course, I do want to show you a few things I think is pretty cool. I do a lot of cooking. I just did a cooking class for Empire Fest. It's a Empire Fest for Hanger Clinic for people that take care of my arms and stuff for me, build my arms for me and everything. And I just did a cooking class there, so I think it's pretty cool. And I like to show you just a couple gadgets. Anybody like to drink wine? Does anybody like to drink wine? Here's one right here. I think it's pretty cool. It's just an electric wine opener. That's all it is. You just put it on top of your wine bottle. You hit this button. That button goes down, gets the cork, and you can pull it. It pulls it right out. And then you hit this top button, and it drops the cork, takes the cork right off. So something like that, just an electric wine opener. It makes it a little easier in the kitchen to do things. Show you a couple more things, but I think is pretty cool. This is kind of weird looking, right? Got some suction cups on it and everything. And what this does, I can take this and I can suction cup it to the top of my stove. Then I can take the handles of the pans and put in here. While this thing is suction cupped to the top of my stove, the handle is in here, and I can stir anything in the pot without the pot moving. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So that's how that works. That's and all it is just suction cups on the bottom and a little handle holder is all it is. So it works out pretty good. And then one more thing I like to show you, I think is pretty cool. Sorry, I'm offline there, or off the video. And it's just like a little cutting board is all this is. As you can see, it's got little 4 slices in it and a little ring in the middle. And what that does for me, I can just drop a tomato or an apple on there, and it pretty much holds it for me while I slice it with my knife. So it's pretty awesome, They have a little adaptive stuff like that. My goal is, to believe it or not, was to try to use. My whole goal was not to use anything adaptive for what I do. I want to use everything that I used to use when I had arms. And like I said, for the most part, I do. I just like testing little new stuff and see if it's any faster and anything like. And of course it is, like this wine opener. It takes me 10 minutes to open a bottle of wine. With this here, a few seconds it seems like. So it's I like to make things easy as possible for myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. Work smarter, not harder. That's the way I see it. You know what I mean? But and that's just some simple things I can in adaptive equipment that I use. And I'll give you another little rundown on something real quick. I think it's pretty cool. It's the way these hooks articulate. I can articulate that hook down like that, or I can turn it up and just articulate it down the other way. And I'll show you something real quick, and you're going to really trip out on it, how just articulating it just a little bit makes a big difference. But I'll show you, just giving you an example. This is my phone, and to pick my phone up, to get it close to my ear, this is all flat, just like it should be. I'm going to show you how hard it is to get this thing up to my ear. me to get her locked in place. This is a manual lock on my left arm, so it's a little harder to lock. There we go. But you can see I can't get it up to my ear. But if I take, let me get sideways here, hit that button, drop that down, I can take it and bam, right there to my ear, you know. So
Wow.
pretty cool. Yeah, it's pretty
It's
cool.
very cool.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
very cool.
And it's like I said, it's just wanting to know how to use them. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just like having two fingers.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's pretty cool.
Very cool.
And it's just wanting, you know, you just gotta want to know how to do it. You just gotta want to do it. That's what that's bottom line. That's what it is. You gotta work at it. You know.
Yeah. That's
and,
awesome.
So it hasn't been easy,
Good.
but
Okay.
it's been good.
Next, Kate and Tess. We're wrapping up here pretty quickly. Hard to believe our hour is almost past. I'd like you to give either a bit of advice or a learning experience that you've had through Tess's injury and recovery that would be for the claims world, our audience. A bit of advice, something you learned.
What do you think?
Give up.
Never give up. Well, that's true. That's true.
Anything is possible.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's amazing.
You know, keeping communication open it is important, but we had no expectations of the help we would get through the workman's comp people, and it was more than we ever would have imagined. So I did, you know, things I didn't even conceive of. They said it, you know, it's great. It's great. And when Tess had her second injury, they didn't hesitate to say, okay, you know, anything you need, and 8 more months of hospital.
Yeah.
So I don't know, just to communicate and tell them what you need, but very often they anticipated our needs before we even knew what we
Yeah, it is really amazing. I think we didn't have time to share this with our audience today, just because of the time frame we're on, but Tess had a hemorrhagic stroke, which ultimately was tied back to her original injury. And so that additional 8 months of care that Kate just mentioned is related to that. And Dana, before I move on to you, I just want to let the audience know, if you're not already inspired by Tess, she actually lives in her own apartment. She has a roommate, and her parents have moved to New Mexico. It's Tess's favorite state. She loves the weather and the outdoors, and so it's really quite a blessing that she's able to be there and be as independent as she is today. Lots to Tess's story, and Tess, that advice of never giving up. And then Kate, communication, I think will stay with all of us.
Is here in New Mexico, in Santa Fe, and she was working until the stroke. So she worked 3 afternoons a week in the lab. So that was wonderful that her bosses still wanted her. And
it is. Return to work can be everything. It can be such a inspiration and a drive. And certainly, oftentimes in workers' compensation, we think about return to work early in a claim. But if you think about all the treatment Tess had, and then the fact that her employer stuck with her, it's pretty wonderful. Dana, with your experience, what advice would you have for the claims team?
My biggest thing is, since each injury is so different, and each person is so different, really getting to know what the person was like beforehand to try to anticipate how they're going to handle the situation and live with it moving forward is very important. Not everyone experiences different adversity in life, and some people haven't experienced that severe of adversity. And if you're thrown into the spinal cord injury mix, not by choice, it's going to be
Yeah.
difficult to get through. So really getting to know, even if, because I wasn't very open to my case manager in the beginning, I was very closed off and just didn't want to talk. So even if you have the access to their family, just trying to get to know them and the type of person that they are, I think would be really beneficial.
Yeah, that's great advice, Dana. Thank you. And Billy, how do you want to close?
Well, I want to say this. What made my experience a successful experience, I guess, is that, in the beginning, my caseworker, I think her name was Lori or Kim. I can't remember. It's been so long. I know now her name is Robin. It's a different lady. But, she told me I was worried about what was going to happen and all this. But she told me, she said, you know what, Billy? You do you, and you let us take care of everything else. And you know what? That's exactly what they did. You know what I mean? That's exactly what they did. And I couldn't ask for anything, and they could still continue to do that. I'll get phone calls. There's nothing wrong with picking up the phone and calling somebody and say, hey, how you doing today? You got everything you need. I get that. I get that all the time. And man, it just feels good to have that. And it's key, Tess. Communication is key. You're absolutely right. And I think that's a very important thing to have. And like I said, and what that did for me, I didn't have to worry about anything. I didn't have to worry about anything at all, but getting better. And that's how it should be. I think. So that's my advice for that. And I always like to say, man, if you ever find yourself in a bad situation or you feel down or anything like that, communication and stay you and stay positive. It's bottom line. That's how it goes. Yeah.
This is really amazing. I'm sure our audience realizes now why I called this "What Good Looks Like." As a nurse, but also part of the workers' compensation industry now for 30 years, I've had the fortunate opportunity to spend a lot of time with injured workers. But if you haven't, I encourage you to reach out to injured workers. They can help us improve our products. They can help us with our case management models. They can help us with our advocacy and our empathy, and to know how our system works for them. The system was made for them, and yet oftentimes we get caught up in the regulation. And so if there's something I can say and close today, it's know what good looks like. And it's not us. It's not us without injured workers that need us, that are looking for us and their families to help them. And certainly these are catastrophically injured workers that have done amazing things with their recovery. But we should consider this with each and every claim in workers' compensation. We have an awesome opportunity to help people. We are in a caring industry, and we need to exude that every day. So on behalf of Work Comp Central, my company, Sedgwick, and all of our industry, thank you, Kate, Tess, Dana, and Billy, for sharing your time with us, your experiences, and we're really amazed. You are all such an inspiration. And on behalf of everybody, thank you.
Well, yeah, thank you for what you do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.